Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get started with this part of the talk, and then as people filter in, then we'll be into the main part. All right. Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. And we're super excited to welcome David Tao from BHF, the founder and CEO. He's a trained engineer. We're going to have him talk a little bit about where he is and who he is and what he's doing from Markham, Ontario. That's where BHF is located. And before we get started with our automation in agriculture talk, I want to make sure that we go ahead and we acknowledge the land that we're coming from today. And we recognize that we're coming from all across Ontario, even across Canada. And we're super thankful for the land that we are in. And we recognize that the farms, the land, the food systems that we work within are part of the traditional territories of many Indigenous nations. And we acknowledge their long-standing relationship with the land and the knowledge that continues to shape how it is cared for today. And so if you could take this time, we'd first of all like to know where you're coming from. So drop that into the chat. And if you're in the organic value chain, which means if you eat organic food, you're in the organic value chain. And anywhere else in there, if you can let us know where you're coming from and what group you're representing today, or if you're just here to learn for yourself, let us know that in the chat. It's really great for us to see where people are coming from. And at the same time, if you'd like to acknowledge the land acknowledgement of where you're coming from today in the chat, we would love to see that as well. All right, and a little bit about Ontario Organic. So if this is your first time joining us, or your 100th time joining us, because we do a lot of these educational talks, um, we want to talk about who we are. So that fantastic group that you see with their elbows up, that was from our meeting last year for our strategy meeting with our board of directors. And so Ontario Organic is a not-for-profit organization. We're a very small group working day to day, and then we are supported by our amazing board. We are looking for new board members as we come up to our AGM this fall, and so there's terms that you can have to be on the board, and it's a working board, and so these people are really passionate about organics and Ontario and represent all parts of the value chain as well. And if that feels like something you might be interested in, we do have a link where you can actually self-nominate or maybe even nominate somebody else to become a board member. So that's our role here is really to support farmers, businesses, um, input people, our certifiers, all parts of the value chain, all the way to the people that are eating organic food, they're putting it into their pantry, the retailers, the stores that are supporting that. And so that's our job here is really to just bring it all together, bring knowledge to you, science-backed information, and to build this organic community so it's thriving here, not just in Ontario, but all across Canada. And so we're going to welcome David now in our automation uh, project today or webinar today. And really, Dave is here to talk about something that's transforming agriculture, and that's automation. And automation is not something people normally think about when they think of an organic farmer, right? They really think that organic farmers are still doing everything old school. And that's not at all the case. Maybe it is for some, but not for everyone. And we're really seeing that that reality is that we're becoming more and more innovative, bringing in more technology, automation, et cetera, into organic farming. And so we're going to talk about, GPS guided cultivation. If you've been joining us for our webinars on grains, we've talked a lot about the big trucks that they're using out there, precision transplant planting. And then we'll talk about some of David's technology as well. But then also when you get into packing lines, decision making. That's, there's automation often involved in flows of how you decide what you're going to be doing. And there's all sorts of technology that's really helping farmers produce high quality food while continuing to protect the soil and the biodiversity that we, associate with organic farms. So, one of the things we do here at Ontario Organic is we're also embracing innovation. If you haven't had a chance to look at Ask AgriWise, we're building a centralized data platform that brings together organic data, research, market intelligence, and different resources to also help with that. So we're innovating here right at Ontario Organic as well. Today we're excited to hear from David from BHF, and he's going to share how automation is shaping the future of agriculture and food production. And yeah, so I'm going to hand it off to you, David, so you can, if you don't mind introducing yourself, and then you should be able to share your slides when you're ready to do that.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. So, said my name is David. I'm the founder and CEO of BHF Robotics. We build robots that kills weeds with high voltage electricity selectively with guided by AI. In addition to weeding, these robots could potentially also we have a list of features in the pipeline to automate other tasks on the farm, for instance, harvesting, deploying for strawberry and thinning, and many more. For instance, data collection and crop monitoring and disease control, etc. So I'm going to share my screen very quickly. Okay. So a little bit about myself. So this is the robot in action. So right now this robot is designed to do three things. The commercial version. First is electric weeding, kill weeds with high voltage electricity, shallow cultivation, or you can consider as the on the surface level cultivation, as well as doing thinning for leafy greens. So why I get into this area is, well, first of all, when I was a little kid, I actually was asked for help and also getting paid a little bit as my summer jobs to pick weeds for my grandparents. They actually have a small block of leafy green farms at the backyard. It was actually a lot of fun, but at the same time, it's also backbreaking. Then fast forward after my first company, it was during the pandemic. I visited friends, and basically it was a carrots farm, but I couldn't find any carrots on this farm because it's all covered by pigweeds. Around that time, as the government has sealed the border, so no foreign laborers could come in during the pandemic. And he has been spraying herbicides for the better past 20 years. So most of pigweeds has already developed resistance against herbicides. So there's virtually no way for him to come uh, basically manage his weeds. And he was suggesting, hey, David, you're a trained robotics engineer. Why don't you develop something that could help me, essentially? And he was suggesting you should probably think about electricity. And I did went home and I tested basically three or to four different kinds of weeding methods to kill weeds. And at the end of the day, the high voltage electricity to manage weeds wins are our accounts. I mean, I tested the concentrated herbicides. My team also tested the cultivation as well as laser, which is also getting very popular nowadays. Um, so we ended up with this machine, the machine you're looking at here. So first of all, the what we're doing is we're targeting crops nowadays. But it's basically what it does is it find the weeds and target it with a robot arm and touches, and the electricity goes all the way to the roots and kill the roots first. As we call it in the industry, we're solving the problem from the roots. Then the weeds dies in a matter of milliseconds. So we're talking to crops right now for onions, lettuce, carrots, and beets and peppers. But this robot could also be using for row crops as we're expanding to that market in 2027, as well as tree crops, which is coming soon. And what it does, electric weeding, row cultivation, thinning. So Well, electricity is very interesting. It finds the least resistant path and go into which is usually through the roots. And once you go through roots, because we're using high voltage, the roots dies very quickly. The cell disrupts, and then comes back in from the other side, and thereby killing the weeds. And the good thing about this is, it could have potentially targeting weeds at all different sizes. I've literally tested killing weeds as small as seedling, as tall as a human being or my own size, and it's able to target them equally. And by controlling how fast the electricity goes through the weeds and also the contact time, as well as the voltage and current, we can make sure that the crops nearby does not get damaged in the process. And this is especially useful for targeting weeds that has a powerful root system, for instance, nutsedge and the Canada thistles. A lot of growers that we work with, they have a lot of problems with Canada thistle or nail nutsedge because when you do have hoeing, kill the top of it, the root system is so powerful, it always grows back very quickly. So ended up having to eliminate the Canada thistles or these weeds on a basically twice in a week, and some of them better ones probably every once a week. But with electricity, the root system dies first, right? As you can see from the images here. Um, and we can prevent regrowth of these weeds. So a lot of people are asking us, so if we have use electricity to kill weeds, it always has to go through the soil. But does it change the soil property or change the soil function anyways? And the answer is no. From the extensive research that's been done by university and research groups, the soil disturbance or property changes is negligible. So I'll show you a video very soon, but for the weeding tools that we use, it does not go into the soil. It merely touch the weeds above the soil level. But for some growers that require to having a bit of aeration in the soil, we could also the same robot arms and the same technology can go into the soil and provide some surface cultivation. So compared to other weeding tools on the markets, for instance, cultivation and the laser, but they have their own issues. I'm sure that growers nowadays are aware of that. For instance, repeated cultivation could break the soil structure and cause soil erosion in the longer term. And it's hard to manage weeds very close to the crops because it could disrupt the roots growth for crops. And some weeds can survive cultivation very easily, even if you pull them out. But if it starts raining the next couple of days, they could regrow. And same thing for laser. They can only control small weeds. For instance, when weeds are 2 weeks or younger, and they're very slow and they're expensive, they only work on certain weeds per se. But this comes into issue. What if, especially in Ontario, what if it starts raining or in the first 2 weeks of the season? Then it's very likely for laser to lose control over the field because when the weeds grows 2 weeks older and the robot gets into the field around that time, it couldn't manage the weeds particularly effectively. And Blizz Electro Weeder, we address all of the issues. We can manage weeds at all growth stages. As I mentioned, as small as 2 weeks old and as big as very tall weeds, very mature weeds at reproductive stage. So that means the electro weeder, we don't have a limitation. We don't have a short window of opportunity to manage the weeds very quickly. So you can send the electric weeder into the farm at any point and still able to do a good job managing the weeds. And our speed comparison is we're 48 times faster than laser. And there's another thing I need to mention is the seed germination. So for more mature weeds and somehow I guess fall through the crack, they didn't get managed in time. If they're being applied with electricity in time, the germination of their seeds reduced quite significantly, as you can see from the research being done. So combined together, well, while managing the weeds, so most of weeds don't get into the reproductive stage and generating seeds, as well as or well, basically invalidate the seeds when they germinate. We can reduce the seed bank in the soil over time, so that over time the number of weeds or weed population reduce drastically. As you can see, this is a field comparison for weeds being treated and untreated. The significant differences. As you can see from here, these are all dead weeds. I'm going to show you a video very quickly so we can see the close-up here as well. Okay, let me just reshare the screen here. So this is a video of the how the robot works in action. This is our newest version, the Gen 3, currently going through and this is the 8 feet version. We have the different sizes. 20 feet goes as large as 20 feet version. Also, one arm version for about 4 feet. So 4 feet, 8 feet, and 20 feet.
David, can you tell us like what's happening here with like the
Yeah,
parts
you
that
will
are
see very
dragging there?
soon.
Yeah.
This one is only testing the vision system, targeting the weeds. You will see very soon. This is how it works in action when it's actually zapping the weeds. So it does, it has a camera, has an artificial lighting system to tell the difference in weeds and crops and only zapping the weeds. And this is a weeding on a lettuce farm.
As the zapper is going down, it's not actually affecting the weed of the crop at all. It just ends at the root itself, and it doesn't travel any further.
It actually travels down to the roots and comes back to the grounding electrode on the back, which you can't really see it in this video. Um, but that's how it does. But it always shows the least resistant path. But if you look at the weeds and crops, even though when they're touching each other, there's still a small hair and wax on the leaves that creates a bigger resistance. So if you're touching the weeds at a very short period of time and control the current and voltage, you will only kill the weeds but not affecting the crops nearby.
Awesome.
As you can see, you can touch multiple weeds all at the same time. So we call it a parallel weeding in the internally. So it's actually not just killing weeds serially, but it kill them in parallel. So imagine you can have a very big electrode and kill, I don't know how many weeds you can kill all at the same time. But that's what makes this robot faster than other weeding robots on the market. And this is providing some surface cultivation. And this is a weeding for strawberry. As you can see, this is a weeding for some more established Canada thistles. It's avoiding the crops here. This is a grounding electrode. So what it does is it touch the weeds and the electricity, the energy flow through the weeds to the roots and comes back from here and goes back to the robot, forming a closed circuit.
What would
And this is
happen
the
if the circuit wasn't closed, David?
then it will not touch, well, it will not kill the weeds.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's why we have a grounding wheel that's always touching the ground. But if it's lifted up, then basically the operation stops. So this is how we control, even though the electrode is not touching the crop, even it's over it, as long as we're not touching the crop is safe. So this is a comparison between treated field and untreated fields. Giving some close up, you'll see these dead weeds between in the rows and near the crop. They're very close. Same also here. Yeah, there's around the dead weeds around the crops. And of course, we comes with different versions. There's a one row robot. It starts with $100,000, which is much cheaper than, well, let's just say other weeding robots goes up to a few million. As well as it can go upscale to 8 feet and 20 feet. And the robot itself, the accuracy is around the millimeter accuracy. So we can get to the weeds very small when they're very small and when they're close to crops. Okay, stop sharing the video. Um,
The second one, like it looks a lot heavier. Is it actually like is it a lot heavier, the second version that you were showing of the
yeah,
road?
so you're talking about this version?
I think this was the first version, and the second one was like more of a closed off square that you couldn't see as much underneath.
Yeah, that one is well, it's not available right now, but initially when we started, we built autonomous robots. But they're using GPS as guidance, but they're for vegetable farms, there are a lot of issues because the trees could block the GPS signal. So, and most grower we spoke to, they still prefer using their tractors, which they've been using for centuries. So we just eventually decided instead of reinventing the wheel, having a mobility system on our own, it's better just to rely having a tractor towed version, rely on the tractor to provide the mobility.
Okay.
So all of our robot right now, they're towed by a tractor, tractor implements.
All right. Okay, David, is that oh, there you are, the get in touch.
Yeah, get in touch. So if you're
David.
interested, we're actually looking for trial partners for organic growers in vegetables or berry production to do trials next year. So if you're interested, feel free to shoot me an email.
All right. Okay, well, I have a bunch of questions for you, David, and I first of all just amazing that the technology is out there to be able to weed, we have technology that seems to be just fine for weeding in rows, right? That where it doesn't have to like figure out where the crop is, but weeding for the crop where it's not dense enough or is able to keep the weeds down is really a significant leap in terms of weeding um, just in general with a machine that can do like as you were saying when you were a kid, all the hand picking and that there's like a processing, like as a human being where you're like that's a weed, that's not a weed. So how does your technology know that what's a weed and what's not a weed?
Yeah, so use a neural network or and as well as well, what's more popular right now, large language model for training the computer to understand the difference between weeds and crops. Once you provide it with sufficient data, it will sort of understand the finite difference in terms of the images between the crops and the weeds, and able to guide the robot arms to target very specifically on the weeds to kill the weeds. Yeah, so I mean, the way I see it is that you can see computers or the AI as a 3-year-old boy. It's a complete blank, and you have to show him what is a good weeds, what is a good plant versus a bad plant. Of course, the results of not having enough data is it could start recognizing even soil as a weed or as a crop and attacking it. But we have a sophisticated process that we don't need millions of data or billions of data to be able to understand what is the weeds and crops. We use a proprietary AI algorithm to be able to start detecting a new crop in the field with only a week of data collection and model training.
Yeah, okay. And so that's really incredible, right? And I would you have been able to do this, 5 years ago? Has technology with AI changed so much in the last little bit that it's allowed you to do this, or would you have been able to do this a while ago?
I would say thankfully for all the venture capital money spent in autonomous driving, as well as government money spending in this area, this technology has leaped forward drastically in the last 5 years. This process was feasible a few years ago, but the amount of data, the amount of cost that goes into it to train a good model is just make it economically uh, infeasible. So I would say, yeah, thankfully the all the training, all the development goes in the last 5 years has bring the cost down to very minimum for a robotics company to be able to do this in agriculture.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're figuring out the amount of labor that you would have to have out there, and how often is somebody sending the robot or sorry, what was the name there? The electric weeder. How
Yeah.
often is a farmer normally taking that over their field?
Yearly, it really depends on different farm. I mean, one thing we learned working with organic growers is that each field is different. Different soil types, different kind of different soil type, different kind of weed species, weed density, seed bank. So it really depends on the kind of weed density they have, how much rain they're receiving during the season. Some of them they could be sending out the robot every 3 weeks and still able to manage the weeds relatively well. Some of them has to sending out the robots literally 3 out of 4 days, 3 out of 7 days in a week, and still not able to managing the weeds really well. Um, right now we're actually trying about 4 days a week for that grower, but it really depends. But most likely whenever the robot is sending out there, um, it's within a week time, this robot's able to finish the job.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things you have on your slide up there is compounding seed bank reduction. So the people that are having a hard time maybe getting on top of it the first year, like successive years, they're just going to see more and more and more improvement, right? So I imagine
Yeah.
that's a fantastic thing. And the fact that it moves germination down to 5% versus 95%, even on things that have already gone to germination, is a big difference as well.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, also for our robot, the biggest major difference is that the robot doesn't have to slow down when the wind density is high. What it actually causing a lot of times the robot has to do a second time weeding in a week or in 2 weeks is that the weeds germinate really quickly, so your robot has a new flash of weeds to control over time. But I think the record that we have is one pass is enough to control at least 95% of the weeds on the farm.
That's really fantastic. When you think about our growers that are working in the fields today, um, what do you think their biggest challenges are?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is labor, always the biggest issue. I guess availability of the labor, the quality of the labor, also the cost of the hiring a labor. I don't know how many times we have spoken to a grower and they mentioned that they feel like they are more of an HR manager for the farm instead of a grower. It doesn't have a lot of time to think about expansion and think about how to grow the crops better. He spent most of the time training his labor and hiring the right people to do the right job. If it gets hot, the labor stop working or resting on the farm. I don't know how many times they have to tell the labor that you're not supposed to run over my crops or run over the crop lines, or you should not be sleeping on the job, etc., etc. So, and it's very difficult to manage them. First of all, it's much easier to get a better paid job in a much more comfortable job environment. So even sometimes they hire the labor, but the labor could quit in the middle of the season and just leave the grower hanging. And it's sometimes very difficult to push a weeding labor to work overtime in order to catch up with the weed density, the weed growth. Which is why I think a robot is much easier to manage once you get it working than to manage labor.
Yeah. And I guess with all technology, automation, tractors, whatever it is, we've every step has decreased the amount of labor hours that are needed to be put in. And yeah, there's, just overall we can make more food in less amount of time or less costs, right? Both of those two things can be helpful. So I'm thinking about the one in our we do a field crops series, Grain Farmer and Friends. We do that once a month, and they talk a lot about the weed zapper that comes up from the states that they use in their um in their big fields there. It's what makes like this different from the other ones that are out there, the other agricultural robots and things like the weed zapper and other products?
Well, yeah, I think that this is targeting different problems. Weed zapper is focusing on late stage when the weeds grow taller than crops, so they can have a big boom driving over and kill only the weeds, not the crop, because crop are much shorter. The target for that is to making sure that the weeds doesn't get into the way of a harvester harvesting the crops. Also, it could slight or marginally increase the market value of the crops. But once the weeds, just from the weeding management perspective, when the weeds gets this tall, most of the damage is already done to the crops nearby. Whereas we have the AI solution, AI parts to be able to tell the difference between weeds and crops, so we can get into the field much earlier and control the weeds from the very beginning. In that sense, if you're able to control, you use this robot, it could significantly increase your yield at the end of the year because you're able to manage the weeds better and prevent the weeds from going very tall and start germinating, start producing seeds. Also, in a lot of cases, because we can go very deep, very close to the ground, actually our electric weeding is much more effective than compared to killing the weeds from, I don't know, like a 2 meters tall. In that case, the current has to travel much more, and sometimes the weeds start to break even before the current can generate enough heat or enough damage on the roots. So our solution is able to manage the weeds much earlier, much more effectively.
Okay, that's a great answer because I think in those conversations we've kind of heard about how bad some of those weeds can get and how they're not even able to manage them at those later stages. And I've heard them discussing that a lot. And and when you talk about your what your gross crop amount is at the end of the season. Have you guys done the studies to look at production levels pre and post using the weed sorry weed
Electric weeder.
yeah, electric weeder that you have?
Yeah, we have been getting feedback that the crops are getting bigger. Some of them mentioned about 20 to 30% increase in yields. For I'm talking about mostly a leafy green crop. So yes, there is an advantage for getting the weeds when they're small and being able to manage them really well early in the season. You can potentially increase their yield. Some of the growers actually mentioned that because they're able to manage the weeds better, the crops grow faster. That means they can harvest a lot earlier than before, which means even for a short season, like in Canada, they can grow two cycles of crops versus before they can only grow one cycle.
Oh, that's significant. That is very significant. Wow. I just are was there I kind of jumped in here and do you have some more slides here after this one?
Oh yeah, no, I think this is pretty much it.
Okay. All right. If you want to stop sharing your screen then, and I'm just kind of wondering how you talked about your friend who was reducing herbicide, who wanted to like he was using tons of herbicide, had been doing that forever. Is that friend now using that? Are you seeing reduced herbicide or are people just using the same amount? Um, and is there like an improvement basically to sustainability then for not if they are using less herbicide?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, the well, herbicide is a chemical approach to control the weeds. So, if you think about in the history, biology always developed a way to manage the basically to manage the development possible to for plants to develop resistance, at least not for the short period of time, against thermal or electricity as the way of managing the weeds. Um, So, I mean, this is virtually a weeding method that's won't the weeds will not have develop resistance to. On top of that, since able to control most of the weeds that we have tested, common weeds in Ontario as well as in Canada, also we can kill weeds at different growth stages. On top of that, we have tested the weeds. We can kill weeds in milliseconds. If that translates into acreage or throughput, that basically means could it be 8 kilometers per hour to 9 kilometers per hour when the robot is traveling at. So that's matching almost a conventional sprayer doing weed control. So if you're looking at this, potentially once this technology matured, it could potentially replace herbicides as the main solution for main approach for managing weeds, even in row crops, etc. I think right now a lot of technologies coming into this market try to replace herbicides, but they're limited by efficacy and limited by efficiency and throughput. But I think electricity is the one with the all of these problems solved.
Yeah, you're definitely not developing resistance to electricity. That's not a thing that a plant is generally going to
It's
develop.
capable of.
If it does, maybe we have bigger problems.
Exactly. Super, super weeds.
Super, super, super weeds. Yeah. All right. Well, so obviously, like our membership here at Ontario Organic, like these are the people that are immediately going to be interested in this because they're already, reducing, these inputs. Um, what do you find that working with organic farms has been where you guys have been working directly with them? And and if so, what have you learned from working with those groups?
Yeah, yeah. Organics farms, well, it is a very challenging uh well, let's just say it's a very challenging industry because not a lot of use chemicals or well, there's a lot of regulation in this market and frankly speaking, each market well, they have very limited tools for them to manage weeds. Most of the time they use cultivation plus hand labor or hoeing. Um, and what I found out working with the growers is that each field is different. Different weed density, as I mentioned, different soil type, different weed species. I've seen growers with well, the entire field is covered by yellow nutsedge. Some of them covered exactly by Canada thistles, and for hoeing them, they most of the time they find out that they grow back really quickly. Almost immediately after you cut them off, 1 week later, same location, they regrow. So they have to spend the money hiring labor coming back and well in most of the time they couldn't find the labor to come back because they have other jobs to do, etc., etc. So what we notice is different field is different. So and this robot was initially created with the versatility in mind. So that to go to any field, we have a software engineer dedicated to collect enough data, create a different, more efficient way to manage the weeds on the farm, and the data we collecting on the farm will yearly being feed back into the machine so the machine can train itself to do a much better job, more efficient jobs. So yeah, that's something we have learned so far is that each farm is different and the solution has to be really tailored towards each farm.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm glad that like I mentioned, I was out on a farm tour. Like I've been on a listening tour of meeting with different groups in the organic value chain. And so I did see just on Thursday, I got to see your robot or not your system in action there, the electric weeder. And it was really neat to see it there and I guess with different terrains, if you're being pulled by a tractor, like you do overcome some of the stuff that if you were just doing an automatic robot, I imagine early on a lot of those differences would have also been difficult to deal with all of the different terrains. Um, so right now you showed us there was like a hint where you were showing the cultivating piece. So what are what new capabilities are growers asking for, and do you think you'll integrate that with your technology?
Yeah, well, essentially, we're using robot arms that's mimicking a human arm. So whatever the human can do, the robot can potentially do it too, with giving it enough data. Um, so we're being asked by growers for harvesting, especially leafy greens. Even some apple growers have been approached us, can you change the direction of the arm so you can pick apples sideways? That is that. And also have been asked for doing thinning for leafy green lettuce. There's also deblooming, so cutting the flowers off for berries, etc. Also for disease management, disease forecast, because we're constantly collecting data on the farm. So those data can be used for forecasting if there's a disease happening or powder mildew or fungus infection on the farm. So yeah, essentially, I mean, our idea vision for this robot is the weeding is where how we get into the markets, but in the longer term, we'll start to uh, well, basically equip the robot with more features, for instance, harvesting, and so it can basically save us more money, provide more savings to the growers that it work with.
Yeah, so I mean, like a multi-tool at the end of the day, you've refined the technology for identification. That's like whether it's weed, crop, that sort of thing. And then, the harvesting piece, being able to actually grab it and keep it intact. And then I guess having a place to put it. So it'll be really fun to watch you guys go from, being a very neat weeder, it looks very efficient and the data's very promising in terms of everything that you're showing, but then that you basically have a multi-tool that, a machine that goes out there and can do all the things would be fantastic. I want to open up now in case our participants here want to ask any questions. Do we have any questions from our participants here that would like to join? I have a feeling we're going to have the 1 o'clock people start filtering in here too as we as we answer these questions, so at least they can catch those. All right. one of the things I was wondering about, oh, Sammy just put up our Help Us Grow webinar feedback. So if you can give us some feedback on that. Um, so you said, what does it cost right now? And is it available? Are people able to order this right now and actually have it?
Yeah, yeah, they can order for the next season. So the cost of the robot range between a smaller version, about 100,000, to a 20 feet version goes about 500,000.
Okay. And in terms of like, have you guys done a financial breakdown for people so they can see like what their returns would be versus labor and increased crop production? And then I guess overall the weeds will continue to go down and down and down. So some of those other numbers will go up over time as well. Have you guys done that for farming?
Yeah, it really depends on the size of the operations, but we have seen growers range from 6 months payback periods to purchase a machine all the way to 1 year to 2 years of payback time. So it also in terms of the hand labor, so I mean our stats right now is minimum able to kill 95% of the weeds on the farm. Um, yeah.
Okay. And I guess so you said you're looking for people to do trials next year. So that would be like on a small plot of land, not their entire farm, but to continue refining the system. You're looking for partners for next year.
Yeah, yeah, we're looking for partners to well to trial the robot. I mean the objective is to make sure this robot can cover enough crops that we haven't covered before. So preferably someone that's not in the crops already tested before.
Okay. Okay. So are there particular crops that would be of interest for you?
Yeah, we're looking for pepper, or well organic pepper, um, beets as well. Um, I think other kinds of berries would be of great interest to us. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. So that's good. Well, it's good to do the call out, know what people are looking for. One of the things that we do is quarterly we run a webinar about different financing available and we definitely there's loans like the CALA loan. FCC does some specific loans for this kind of thing. And there's some other cost share opportunities for infrastructure. Do you help people? Do you guys have that set up with your company if people are looking for financing for products? Not so much you selling the product, but are you like mostly I want to know, is there a way that Ontario Organic for anybody that would want to buy these kinds of products for financing if your people that come to you already know about those things that are available to them?
yeah, yeah, yeah. We have operations manager here is handling a lot of grant applications to subsidize. I mean, we're very experienced because we already do that for ourselves, also for our existing customers. Yes, so we can set up for that. Also, we have our own partners, banking partners that can provide financing for purchasing robots. So they usually can provide up to 7 years in the financing period.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm really I've seen your presentation in a couple different places and the learning process that had to go through in terms of learning all the different weeds. I saw that a couple years ago and it's really been fun to watch the progress that you guys have made and to see it out on the fields and then to finally like actually see one the other day when I was out on the one field. So congratulations to you. A startup is not an easy thing to do, and to bring innovation into this space is fantastic. The organic farmers, I'm sure, are very excited about this, and then hopefully the conventional farmers will also see the advantages, and we'll see less herbicides being used and applied on the fields. I just want to Thank you, and I apologize for the time, the timing issue that we had. We did have a lot more people signed up to come, and then we had one time on one place and one time on another. And I'm really happy for the people that were able to make it here and that we were able to record this so those people can watch it later. So just a couple of notes about what's coming up next. So in August, we have three webinars we're hoping you can join us for. So preparing to market your grain, that's with the Grain Farmers and Friends. We're really excited because Rob Walbridge from SureSource will be joining us along with our normal panelists, Dean and Greg. And we're going to be talking about preparing to market your grain. What does that look like when you're trying to figure out everything you need to do to get your grain ready to go to market? We also have Agscape joining us about teaching kids about organic, and we're looking forward to having that with Agscape and sharing that with you. And then on August 17th, we are joined by our retailers from Raise the Root and Joanne's Place, Angela and Rebecca, to talk about selling organic without selling and the messaging that goes beyond that. So you can register for those events. We also have a couple of our Feed on Farm tour stops left this summer. The wine and wildflowers. Oh my gosh, this day is going to be so fantastic. It was last year. We went to each one of the stops, and we had our researchers from Brock University, who are part of the organic science cluster that are doing research out at Southbrook. And so we learned everything that was happening with the plants and with the soil. And then we would drink the wine from the grapes of that plot that we had gone to. So we'd have tastings. And then at the very end, we went under their beautiful covered area overlooking the vineyards and had cheeses and charcuterie and more wine. And it was just an absolute lovely day. So, limited tickets for that, but we hope you can join us on August 16th out at Southbrook at Niagara on the Lake. And then our final Feed on Farms tour stop is actually going to be at Finnings. So we're going to be doing a wagon ride at Finnings. This is our second year doing that, and this will be right in Organic Month in September, which is we're getting very excited about Organic Month here with that coming up. So if you want to join for that afternoon wagon ride or for the Southbrook wine, cheese, and science tour, you can sign up for that as well. We also have a lot of memberships that are available. So I know we do this every time. This is my like, please give us money moment, but that's how we work. So we are a not-for-profit. Our job is just to help the industry and help everybody that is here. And so we're excited that we're able to do that, but we do require funding to keep doing the work that we're doing. So wherever you fall in that value chain, if you are someone who just is an advocate and not just, but it's a very important part of this value chain. If you're an advocate, if you're someone who's eating organic food, we have a membership for you. If you're a business or a producer or an association, we also have a place for you too. And then we also have organic impact partners, and we're so thankful to those. So Finnings, you can see, was our first organic impact partner, and we have several others now. And they actually donate a percentage of their sales right back to Ontario Organic to keep us doing what we're doing. We also have for this month and next month the Organic Action Fund. So we're trying to raise $120,000 to go towards three different buckets. So we have our advocacy bucket, our data bucket, and our education buckets. And so if you're able to donate over the next couple months to the Organic Action Fund, Samuel will drop that into the chat. And we would love to have you support us that way as well. It gives you another opportunity. So, David, thank you so much. And if you want to share your information again with us, we'll send that out with our email with the link for the recording for this. And if anybody has any additional questions, please just reach out to us at Ontario Organic, or you can reach out directly to David. And yeah, thank you so much. Learned a lot about your system today, David. So congratulations, and we're really happy you were able to join us.
Well, thanks very much for having me. I'm glad to be here. If anyone wants to reach out, my email is in the chat.
All right, perfect. All right,
Thank you.
have a fantastic day, everybody. Bye.
Have a great day.